Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Bridging Impact Podcast, the podcast that is passing wisdom to the next generation of athletes, coaches, and parents to transform leaders on and off the court. So, on Fridays, if you are new here, I drop Coach's Corner episodes where I talk about, stuff that's going on in the news in terms of sports, also what I'm learning as a coach, and then also other questions that I'm getting from parents and coaches. So, we will dive in this week to promoting female sports in honor of International Women's Day being earlier this week, and it's also International Women's Month. And this is a really important topic because sports should be accessible and available to all people, no matter what their gender is. And obviously, there's a big gap in sports between boys and girls. So, in doing research for the newsletter and for this, I found that only 40% of girls ages, I believe it was 6 to 8, participate in sports. And that is a very, very low number. I didn't get the number for boys, but I can imagine that it's significantly higher. And then by the age of 14, only 10% of girls are playing sports. And so, I'll start this with a little bit of a story. So earlier this week, I had the opportunity to work at a middle school. I've been helping out and coaching for Peace Players, a great nonprofit here if you want to look into them and support them. They do wonderful work here and all over the world, actually, but great work here in Los Angeles. And we had only girls for the PE class. And one of our head coaches, she's like a program manager. She was kind of running the show and, makes a lot of great points. And I've learned so much from her. Actually, Natalie Gutierrez, she's been on the podcast before. If you want to go listen to her episode, that's a great one. But needless to say, one of the things that I was learning is just they are since middle school, right? So I had about 7th and 8th graders, and a lot of them had looked like they've never, touched a basketball before. And by the time you reach, 7th or 8th grade, and if you haven't touched a basketball, right, you're going to be very nervous you don't have the same physical literacy to, pass the ball, shoot the ball. And if you don't have that, confidence to do that, you're going to be way less likely to attempt, just playing the sport of basketball, which is just really fun. It was, we eventually ran a little 5-on-5 game. They had a great time, but we've seen a lot of progress at this site, but a lot of times, the girls want to just sit on the wall and they don't want to participate because they haven't been encouraged and promoted to, participate from a young age, right? Because, sports are for boys, quote unquote, right? But that's just not true. Sports are for everyone. Basketball is for everyone because, basketball obviously, and sports in general, right? We'll keep this pretty broad. It's just great for physical health. It's great for physical health, but it's also great for mental health. It's also great for connecting and building camaraderie with teammates. It's great for learning leadership skills and life lessons like discipline. And so, of course, what sports can really be for people. But what about for girls too? And I think just making sure that we promote and create that access is really important. And one of the things that I learned from Coach Nat is that the number one thing when girls come into the gym, we have to be able to connect with them. So this is a good one for coaches. If you're, coaching girls, finding something connecting, hey, I like your shoes, however you can to make them feel safe. That's a really, really important stepping point to making sure that they feel included and feel like they belong in the space. Because a lot of times, we just go into practice and we just compete. And another important point is improving the stress levels. So you don't want to just jump into 5-on-5 right away. With girls, boys, they might be able to just kind of jump into it because they're so competitive. But for girls, you need to ramp up the stress levels, right? So, at the beginning, doing warm-ups, right? Then doing maybe some passing and dribbling drills and kind of, building up to 3-on-3 into 5-on-5 into playing competitive. That way we're kind of warming up their bodies, and we don't want to overstimulate them because we want to make sure that they feel like they belong. And so a great resource, actually, I'll make sure to drop it in the show notes, is a guide that Nike Play put together. And so just really making sure that they feel right, like they belong. And that's so important. And so just another big important point for encouraging female sports and women's sports is to reference WNBA teams, reference women's teams, reference women's national teams, reference women players instead of always just referencing the NBA. And that's something I honestly like need to get better at. A lot of times I just reference, the NBA or college basketball, but really referencing, you know, female athletes, right? Because those are people that are great leaders that are already in the community that are already doing great things. And so if we are able to do that, right, then even boys too will start to like really see, okay, those women are at the same level as LeBron James, like same Sue Bird, Diana Taurasi, Kelsey Plum, Sabrina Ionescu, just like referencing a lot of those names. It's an opportunity for them to really connect the dots. Like, okay, like females can be professional athletes as well. So just really promoting female sports and just really honoring that, like that's an important part of their growth and development, and that women can compete too. Because I think that's kind of going to be my last point for this episode, is just knowing that women can compete too. Because a lot of times we're like, oh, boys will be boys, boys will compete, but girls and women want to compete as well, and those are really important life skills for them to then go out and learn how to compete in a job, have leadership skills, be able to talk and communicate in the workplace that they learned from sports, whether it's basketball, softball, flag football, whatever sport they choose to play. They get the opportunity to have that team camaraderie, build those life skills through the game of basketball, through any sport. So I really want you to just challenge yourself. How often do you promote female sports? And I'm going to challenge myself as well, because I need to do a better job at this. Because at the end of the day, right, like Bridging Impact really is just, it's about connecting people through sports, connecting people through basketball, and helping them develop into leaders on and off the court, no matter what their gender is. Because everyone deserves to have the opportunity and the access to play sports. Because sports for us is life. It's everything, right? And of course there are other things in life that matter besides sports, but sports is such an important vehicle for young people to grow and develop. So we need to make sure that those possibilities are for everyone. So if you have any ideas, any resources, any great people to follow or connect with, we would please share it with myself, with Bridging Impact, and we can help share that out so we can start growing female sports. If you have young girls, please promote it for them to go play sports, have them try different sports when they're younger, and just encourage them that they do belong. And then for coaches, just making sure we create those spaces. I know for me and Bridging Impact, right, we're in the very, very baby stages of what we're building here in Los Angeles, but eventually I have a vision of creating like women's only camps and clinics, or at least divisions in their camps, so they can have a safe place to compete. Because as I'm talking here, I'm realizing girls do feel more safer when it's only girls that they're competing with, especially at a younger age, because boys sometimes can be more aggressive and just discourage other girls from wanting to compete. And that's something that I see at the middle school, is the participation rate for girls is much higher when it's only girls, or there's only girls programming, because they just feel safer and feel like they belong. So I really appreciate you all for what you do. I appreciate you all for listening to this episode. Honestly, one thing, I'm sharing right now is like, I'm kind of learning and going through this. That's not something that I am an expert in, but it's something that I feel like should be talked about and should be promoted more. So Bailey Holloway, another person who has been on the podcast, one of actually our top listens, go check out her episode. It's a great one. So without further ado, I will take off for this episode, and I really appreciate you all for listening. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, send this to someone, promote female sports, and I will be in your eyes and ears next week. Coach Furtado out.